provide higher service levels given the increasing demand and cost within the emergency air transport services. By the end of our presentation today, we are confident that we will provide you with the best possible solution. My name is Paris Tu. I am here with me today, my colleagues Ryan and Bernard, and together we are BRP Consulting. So to give you a brief overview of our presentation today, we will be taking you through an executive summary, an analysis of the current situation as well as a recommendation, a timeline to implement the recommendation, some risks and opportunities, as well as a brief summary to conclude. So unfortunately, we do not view the current contract you have with Air Methods to be beneficial. Not only is there outdated equipment causing you to miss out on some opportunities for revenue, but also as a company that provides emergency services to people who require fast transportation to hospitals, we feel that you have a huge responsibility to provide these people with the services that they require. So in order to provide highly efficient emergency air transport services to the people of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, we recommend that you purchase new helicopters, so invest in 12 new S81Zs, as well as negotiate your terms with Air Methods and outsource your maintenance. So throughout our analysis today, Bernard will say why.
Thank you, Percy. So briefly, I will identify the issues you are actually facing here today. So firstly, just to improve the overall level of service you are currently giving, this is a not-for-profit organization. We want to make sure we are providing this much-needed service in New Brunswick, considering this is really a life or death scenario. So there are obviously specific issues we need to address when we're thinking about how we are going to really achieve this going forward. First of all, it's just the financing. Like, really, how are we going to get the money, and how much are we going to pay to really make your dreams come true here? And the operational efficiencies that you currently are experiencing. So really, in the grand scheme, there are a couple major decisions to be made, but there are all some current things that are ongoing that we feel could be maybe revitalized to ensure that you can maybe reallocate some of your money that isn't being spent wisely currently. And lastly, just the old equipment. That is obviously a huge issue. Cost, maintenance, among other things, and just the main issue of we are trying to help people here, and this is really relying on having cutting-edge technology and ensuring that you are getting people from point A to B as fast as possible, because really minutes, seconds, it's the difference between someone making it or not. So briefly, I will take you through the key performance indicators we have identified here today. So first, it's just the return on investment. I know this is just a break-even type scenario, but we want to make sure really we are really just meeting those basic goals to ensure that this is an ongoing process and really just getting the people into the hospital at low cost. Secondly, cost efficiencies, just operational processes that we could maybe improve going forward. Just this is going to be a big process for us, considering price competition in this specific service line is also a huge deal. And lastly, just response rates. We want to make sure we are getting as many people as possible. Just maybe reducing the vacancy rates that are currently present, just reducing those and maybe allocating resources elsewhere, which could help us in the long run. So first here, this is really the key decision. We have the ownership of the choppers, or we have just status quo. First, I'll actually walk you through status quo. So what we have done here is just PV of the costs that you are currently experiencing, what you will be experiencing going forward. This is just the increase in the specific costs associated with the contract that you are currently in, the $45 million. That is a 2-year contract, but upon renegotiation, we do maybe foresee costs translating to you with the purchase of new choppers. Whether or not that will be a better contract, we actually do not know yet, but there is already that 2% increase per year. And on top of that, just the inflation, I thought I'd add to that. So we have come up with a PV of a cost to you of $291 million. And it is available on the fence if you'd like to look at it. And lastly, we have our ownership, which is really what we are going to end up recommending in this specific circumstance. So we have this as a cost right now. So this is specifically just the purchase of the choppers, which takes into account the additional benefit of having the new choppers. So calculated in this specifically is last year when opposed to this year, you were only able to respond to, you weren't able to respond to 50% of the calls that you were receiving. And quantitatives aside, really, this is just added value because You're not trafficking people to your hospitals, the people that are funding the specific operations, so that's just another consideration to keep in mind. So in taking into account in the specific calculation is the 50% added for having the more people, accepting more calls. And secondly to this is just the 30% increase in uptime. So we have done a brief sensitivity with percentages, but we use a 30% initially, so 25, whether it be that, it still would be the most profitable decision considering the large margin between the two. So now just some qualitative factors we thought you should take into consideration when identifying whether or not to make this ultimate decision. So first of all, the advantages, it just really increases your control over the overall process. So currently, a portion of these are being outsourced, and whether or not inefficiencies are being taken place in terms of maintenance, because those costs are currently increasing. You can see that throughout on the financial statements of the contracting company. And increasing accessibility, this is obviously remote locations. We want to see whether or not we can really just, you can place those choppers wherever you like just to increase those response times in general. And you having control of the specific choppers allows you to allocate those accordingly. And more efficient equipment. So once again, this is probably the most important thing of having these newer choppers. It's just the wait time and the additional cost being consumed currently with having these choppers in the shop so frequently, and just this is something we really do need to avoid going forward because costs are not going to get any less, and really demand is increasing thoroughly. And lastly, just the 30% uptime, as I stated earlier, this is also a key thing going forward. We want to make sure we keep those choppers in the air because really it is saving lives. So lastly, disadvantages. There is obviously a significant disadvantage, and that is just the cost of these specific choppers. It is a huge liability to have for a not-for-profit organization, but we feel obviously the pros far outweigh the costs, and it requires financing. So identifying a suitable loaner that's 6.5%, maybe make it a little lower if possible, maybe the 3 to 4 range, but you don't really know until we, I guess, get into the negotiation process. So financing, we have based our calculations on the 6.5% provided, so that's a 10-year loan, and 32.5 million yearly. So really, this doesn't just your budget, but what we have is just the interest PV on this is the 53 million going forward. So I'll now have Ryan take you through a brief recommendation.
So what it really comes down to with this case is just timing. Regardless whether we purchase the choppers or get them through this service air methods, we're going to have to incur that expense in the end. So if we let air methods, if we continue on that contract, not only are operating expenses going up at 2%, but when they have to purchase those new helicopters, those costs are going to come on us regardless. So regardless of what strategy we use, we need new choppers eventually. When it comes down to kind of saving lives in this industry, it's just really crucial we have the best equipment we can. So this is what brought us this recommendation is we want to purchase those 12 helicopters. One thing I did want to highlight over is when Bernard went over those PVs, one thing that didn't even take into account, that was just looking at the operating expense, the contracts growing 2% over the 10 years. That's not including if Air Method had to buy the new helicopters and then throw that cost our way as well as adding on a markup from that. So this is really what it comes down to is why we want these new choppers. It's going to save us in the long run, and not only that, we're going to have more control and accessibility with these choppers that we can really revise our operations to make them more efficient. As Bernard was mentioning, we have 50% of our calls that aren't being really answered properly. This is just unacceptable in this kind of industry, so therefore we feel owning these assets would be the most beneficial thing for this company. And the second thing we want to mention is we're not all set on just totally dropping air methods. We want to be open to negotiations, and what we mean by negotiations is with regards to the pilots and the maintenance. Air Methods, as it stands, is known for its quality maintenance for these helicopters, as well as their pilots that have years of experience, as well as ongoing training. What we want to do is we want to contact these guys and say, well, we're purchasing the assets, but we want to see if they're interested in leasing their basically employees, to have it so that we own the helicopters and we really control what they do in our organization. But at the end of the day, we bring them back, they do the maintenance, they have the pilots, so it just creates less liability on our end and can save us money in the end. And we have appendices to kind of show basically the specifics of the negotiations if you guys want that down the road. And it's really, again, just outsourcing that maintenance, just making sure we're saving the most money in the long run in 10 years, as well as just setting ourselves up to really basically improve our capacity. So here's our timeline. The first thing will be to acquire 6 choppers. We decided to do 6 just because of this industry, dealing with saving lives. We feel like we couldn't just end the contract December 31st and then, okay, go into purchasing choppers right away. So we believe just kind of synchronizing, kind of going in slowly, purchasing 6 helicopters, as well as acquiring that bond as soon as possible. Leaving this tomorrow, we want to secure that as soon as possible, just to make sure we get that 6.5 rate, which will give us great savings down the road. And again, just negotiating with air methods, kind of being open, saying that we still vitalize them and recognize them as providing high quality people, just basically leveraging the fact that we are still a huge participant with them, and just try to get that cost savings. In the midterm, we're going to acquire the remaining 6 choppers, and it's just about phasing it in. We're going to synchronize the new equipment with that life length 3. And this is just kind of setting up for that long term of revisiting key performance indicators and going after that capacity issue. Basically, with these new helicopters, we just want to make sure that we're synchronizing them with our IT department to make sure that we can address the capacity issue of unanswering these calls. And also, we're going to identify capacity constraints. These are the constraints having to do with the fact that 50% of calls are not answered, as well as the fact that 80% of the time our helicopters are coming back. They have no passengers or any resources that bring us revenue. So we believe that this is a really key weakness in this organization, and buying new choppers and revisiting this could be really beneficial down the road. And then lastly, just to retouch on that, we want to revisit those key performance indicators, looking at our return on investment, basically how fast our helicopters are getting to the job, how efficient they're using our resources, and just see if this recommendation is going well as it stands. And that brings us to the risks and opportunities. There are risks obviously associated with this huge investment, and that is the first one, is that high initial investment. We feel like this is not weighted to the fact that we're going to have to incur this expense eventually regardless. If we do it now and we purchase the assets ourselves, we're basically foregoing costs that we're going to have to expense that 2% increase in operating costs we're going to receive down the road in 10 years. And this matches with the opportunity, just the ability to serve more calls, and that's what we're really after here in this kind of industry where it's about saving lives. So with these new choppers, we're going to be more efficiently be able to answer these calls and just provide a better public service for these people. The second risk is ineffective negotiations. As we mentioned, they might not be so keen on the idea of just leasing out their employees, in which case we might be turned down. In which case, the NPV that we calculate, that Bernard went over, that was including the expenses. So regardless if the negotiations go well or not, we are still saving money at the end of the day. And the last risk is just the financial liability of the loan. Again, it comes down to we're going to incur that expense eventually anyway, so we might as well manage it better now and then purchase these assets. Not to mention, we're the biggest service provider in our area. We have revenues to help us if we need them, so we're really covered in this financial liability method. And the last opportunity is just to provide a better public service, and that's what we're truly after. We feel like it is the time to transform this organization, purchase these choppers, and basically forego the rising costs that we have to better capitalize the increasing demand that we'll have down the road. And so now I'll pass it back to Harris to just bring us over the summary.
So to reiterate our presentation for you today, given the nature of the services that your company provides, we feel that it is crucial that you are giving these people the services that they require. And therefore, we think it's crucial that you increase your service levels to be able to provide these emergency air transport services to these people. And because of this, we recommend that you invest in these new helicopters, renegotiate your terms with Air Methods, and outsource maintenance with them. We'd like to thank you for your time and open the floor for any questions you may have. Thank you.
So just noting that you had an interesting solution on kind of splitting up the investment, where you buy 6 and then you have to start and then you buy 6 later, so a little bit more of a staged process. Did you incorporate your initial investment on day 1 and the secondary investment at a later date with respect to incorporating the time value of money when you were doing your cash flow?
You know what, no, we didn't initially. As you can see in our appendix, we took the full $250 million initial. Really just the reason we did this, we just didn't know the discrepancy of really how things were going to play in terms of the negotiations, because really it's starting out, we're going to start negotiating to see if we can outsource some specific services to the current contractor we are working with. That's just the maintenance for the 6 choppers. So if that didn't happen specifically, it would only really be wise to have all 12 on hand, because we are going to have to pay for those staff full time. So it was almost just a contingency process, so that's why we just included it in the full NPV
I'm wondering, given the fact that you have confidence in your figures, there was a $200 million difference in the present value, that you wouldn't go ahead and buy all 12 right away, improve the service levels, and get all of the savings as opposed to phase it in. Just a question of why you'd want to phase it in when you have a lot of confidence in the numbers and it looks like a strong case.
Yeah, though there is that financial kind of opportunity there, I think what we are more thinking is ending the contract, thinking more focused on the public sector of just kind of phasing in these choppers. Although we understand that, yeah, we do have the financial capacity to do so, we feel like just finishing off the contract, making sure we basically don't incur more contract revenue on top of purchasing choppers, all that. Just kind of making sure we're focusing on the service now. It's just like a constant transition. It's kind of what we were after.
Just to add that really quick, we just didn't really identify the breakup of what the contract looked like, the 45 million, how that really looked. So when it comes down to negotiations, we are currently, in our MPV, is that 6 million that we would be paying. The 38 million for the operating costs, etc., for the maintenance. So that would really be our bottom line in terms of the negotiations. So again, we didn't really know what specific costs, how they were allocated, so that's why we did it.
You mentioned that one of the things that we're going is the fact, if we continue with our methods, the fact that some of the helicopters are coming back without a patient. Do you have any recommendation as to what we could do to avoid that if we were to purchase the helicopters?
I think by acquiring the helicopters themselves, that will give them some more control over what they kind of do with the in and outs of the helicopters. So with the more control of that, I think they would be able to find, or you would be able to find better ways to utilize the coming and going of the helicopter.
Just to add on to that, it showed in the process that they called the life center, and then it came over to the service provider, and many of times, because the helicopters were old, that some of them weren't available and it was harder to get it, so it was basically a slower process to get the chopper up and running. We have 12 brand new helicopters at our disposal for 9 locations. We just feel like we can control that, allocate it better, and just basically resource manage, just to make sure if there's any resources or if we can keep helicopters in location as long as possible, just to make sure that we are basically being more efficient.
The premise of your recommendation is based on Air Methods going to be able to pick up additional or provide additional servicing and pilots where they're going to redeploy the choppers that are no longer going to work for us and going to go elsewhere. Have you given any thought to capacity in the marketplace for pilots and service, that they don't take everything away and they're overextended and unable to provide for us?
I think given that the contract with Air Methods is not fully ended, if you are finding troubles finding a pilot, I think you could maybe negotiate some terms and use the pilots that they are providing currently. But overall, we think the goal would be to find your own pilots, but use Air Methods as a source of outsourcing maintenance.
Thank you.
I think it would be worth doing your own maintenance, lower cost, don't mark it up, and also their service record hasn't been really outstanding with 50% downtime. Would you consider that being your own maintenance for increased control?
Just to answer that, we saw that the 50% was really more associated with the fact that they had old helicopters, and that came down to basically they're using all their time to maintain these helicopters. So we feel that they are known for quality. If we have new choppers, that they can handle them best.
Stop there. Thank you.